to check homework? Yay. Take that. Take that.
Oh, right.
I'm glad you did it.
Over and.
What?
Oh, I'm talking about the preamble.
Check. No. Don't really move that fast.
I think I'm gonna take this thing. Are we gonna listen to the
Can we
song?
see this out loud while we're doing it?
No, you cannot see it. That way other people cannot rely on you saying the
Oh,
French
man.
words in order to
I'm
write
gonna
it.
say,
Okay,
you
then
two can
we'll
sing it
always
while I
mess
do
up.
it.
Instead of writing it, can we like say it out loud?
No.
We just say the wrong words and you won't miss anyone.
Yeah, can we say it out loud? We can say it.
States.
No,
We
sorry.
can say it.
It's
Oh,
like verses
Africa.
in the Bible.
United
Let's just say it one verses.
Are we gonna sing it?
No, you're right.
No, I'm saying, are you gonna pull it up right
I'm
now?
gonna pull it up in a second. Well, you should be studying, so that way you're not wasting your time.
Right.
I'm just making sure I'm getting it ready, so we can case for it. Let's go over the homework first, though, and then we'll review for it and get you ready for it. But I'm gonna go ahead and get the homework out of the way. Alright, move it to proper section. You okay with it, Becky?
My
No.
taste buds are disappearing.
That's bummer. Number 1. Who was the absolute monarch overthrown in the French Revolution? Alright. Well, not Genesis. Brecken.
So I forgot Roman numerals, but it's the King Louis XVI.
Good job.
I don't know music.
Louis the 16th. He was overthrown and beheaded
Oh,
for it.
so 10, 5 plus 1.
Yeah.
Do
Oh,
they teach that
nice.
Roman numerals?
I think they teach it like in second or third grade, but it's one of those, as long as you know, okay, it's Louis the 16th, and you remember that it's Louis XVI1, so you can recognize it.
What if we
With
write
this.
6?
Do they do that for all of
Okay,
them?
I'll take that.
Do they only go past 3, or is it
What do you mean?
like
Louis
is
the
it 1, 2? Like from the V, how many ones do they go over left and
I
right?
think it's 3, and then the next one is subtracted down.
I'm confused.
XV1.
Okay, we gotta go. We don't have to talk Roman number now. Number 2, name the old fort in Paris which was stormed by the French revolutionaries.
Bastille was stormed by French revolutionaries.
Alright, the Bastille, but yes, it was stormed. Number 3, what made the French Revolution different from the American War for Independence?
I do.
But you're choosing.
Thank you. The Reign of Terror.
Okay, but why do they have a reign in terror instead of a calm, organized group of people?
Because they were looking at America and they're like, oh, they did this, let's do it too, but let's add guillotine and cutting people's heads off and
I
just
had
not
a
use
far
God in
better
our
answer than
lives.
this girl.
What was the last bit?
God.
What about
They
it?
decided that they weren't gonna use God and they were gonna cut people's heads off.
Okay, that's a
Friends.
basic idea because they didn't have the Christian. They basically said, okay, rise up. Well, I don't like this person. I mean, that was basically it. So they just decided, you know what? I'm going to get revenge on these people. I don't like these people. Kill them all. That's what happened to the aristocrats in France. So
I'm gonna be a great teacher.
it'll be good.
They wanted to be
They
headless.
wanted to
That's what
cut
it
people's
was.
heads off.
That's basically it. Number 4. What was sent by President Washington to negotiate a treaty with Britain? Sorry, who? Brecken.
John Jay.
Good job. Number 5.
George Washington.
Good job. Sorry, we're cutting off your complete sentence.
Uh,
What treaty settled the disputed boundary between Spanish West Florida and the United States?
J tree?
Nope.
I know.
I know.
How do you number 6? How do you number 6? How do you number 6?
Okay.
Pinckney tree.
Good job. We'll talk about it in a little bit later on. But yes, the Pinckney Treaty
I wrote
that established the boundary between Spain and Florida and the United States.
What?
I know, it looks weird. Alright, number 60 then. What named the battles in which forces under the command of General Anthony Wayne decisively defeated the Native Americans?
Anthony Wayne defeated the Indians at Fallen Timbers.
Good job, the Battle of Fallen
Turn
Timbers.
flex or something?
Alright, turn around Ethan, so you're not distracting Brecken. Alright, so if you want to get out the piece of paper so that way you can see the preamble, or if you want to look at your textbook so you can see the preamble. Either one is fine. I'm going to play the song, so I would highly suggest you sing along with it.
Can we watch the video?
How do
Let me
you?
rewrite this preamble real quick.
No, you gotta clear it out in a minute, so you can't even say.
Yeah, I'll need it.
Can I write my name?
Of the United States.
I can't write my name.
Alright, wait. We got you gonna go on together. You can write your name, but I mean, you can't write anything else on that.
Oh, my foot itches. Ooh.
Asleep?
Alright, sing along with it or follow along in your book.
We the people
Okay, now sing.
over to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare
Constitution.
United States of
America. China.
Alright, let's hear it one more time. Hopefully try to get it in there. Right.
Legit.
Ready?
Legit.
Wait, where do I start? Take forever to load.
We the
People of the United States.
in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility. Provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty. To ourselves and our
Posterity, ordain,
establish this
Constitution.
for the United States of
One more
Can I
time.
start writing now?
Alright, no one else to do it one more time?
No.
Yes, 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 yes,
One
yes.
more time,
Thank
and then we
you.
gotta go.
That song's a bop.
Literal.
I put this on my
It's the
playlist.
people of the United States.
perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility.
Provide for the common
defense,
Promote the general welfare and
secure the blessings of our liberty. To ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this
Constitution.
Okay.
United States of
America.
Okay.
1 million bucks.
I
Alright.
did a bad play.
Show me your red pieces of paper so I can make sure that you don't have it creative already written.
What if it's on my wrist?
It's,
Show me your wrist.
What if it's on my leg? Like,
I think I would notice that.
it's on my shoes.
I wrote it on the bottom of my foot so I can do this during class.
Alright. Close
Last
your
night
check.
at the house I was doing this.
Alright, your time begins now. Make sure you have your name and date at the top. If you just want to write preamble
I'll write
quiz,
down
that's
last.
fine. If you want to write
Do we
quiz,
have to have every comma, every period?
No.
Okay.
I'm looking just for the words. Just the words.
Good, because I wasn't gonna write
I'm
them.
not taking off the
But what?
capitalization.
Oh, you are?
No,
Oh,
I'm not.
okay.
I'm
If I
just looking
capitalize
just for
every
words.
word.
I'm not
Please
capitalizing
don't.
anything.
That makes my eyes hurt.
I'm not capitalizing anything.
Can I write it like they did? Like the
Oh yeah, the
As long as I can read it. As long as I can read it. Your time has begun. Go.
What if we put US
What do you for U.S. history?
for United States?
Make sure that you're not giving away answers, but you want to write out every word. If you want to comment quietly, which you can, I can
Yes.
say it, so that way they can hear you when you go off what you're saying. You should have been distracted. Alright, well just wait quietly then. So that way you give everyone else a chance to catch up. I'm proud of you for getting it done quickly. time to double check to make sure you got all your words.
What time do I have?
Give you about another 2 minutes or so. It's normal, but it's supposed to take longer. Where's your soda? For this to take a little bit longer. Maybe another minute or two, but we do have to go. This roll for this one to take a longer bit of time. You sure?
I'm gonna write the name real quick.
Okay. Make sure your name is up. Is next on the 20 card?
Right, that should be the
Alright. Right.
You want my fancy copy?
You were just ready.
I was ready.
Okay. Alright, so make sure your hand is to me. If you can go ahead and get a piece of paper so you write down stuff.
You don't know. Let's get ready for
At least everyone remembered at least part of it.
I was very drunk.
I was very exciting.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll protect for secure.
Alright, it's okay, but remember, we can't really talk about it right now because I know that they know what the answers are, but then make sure that they copy on them because we can't give the answers away, but they should know, they should already completely finished by this
First,
point.
some extra soda in.
Alright, so let's go ahead and let's go over it, thinking over what you've been talking about recently. Alright, we'll start with Eden. Alrighty then, who proposed the small state plan, also known as the New Jersey plan? Each state gets one vote, very similar to the Articles of Confederation.
What's his last name start with?
P.
He.
P. P.
He. Who wrote what?
The small state plan or the New Jersey plan called for each state to get one vote. It was very similar to the Articles of Confederation.
Fred Scott?
Nope.
Patterson.
What's your first name?
William.
William. Yeah, Patrick looks like Peterson. I'm not sure to pronounce
It's
that.
William or John
Peterson?
of the name.
Wait,
What?
William?
Peterson?
Yeah.
I think
Big
Patterson
black.
has
It was
it
William?
at
And Lonnie, I've heard it
somewhere.
Patterson, but I'll double check to make sure. If we ever pronounce it wrong. Alright,
4.
Oh, right, okay.
yeah.
No, it's just on the board member.
Alright, who proposed the Virginia plan?
Sorry.
Nothing begins with an R.
Wrong.
I had it, you said wrong. What's the first name, Charlie?
E.
Oh, Edward? Randolph.
Edmund.
Edmund Randolph.
Edmund Randolph.
21.
Alright, what was the name for the compromise that said, okay, you're gonna have,
Do a compromise.
yes.
Not
Also known as the
The Connecticut compromise.
compromise, but yeah, it does look like compromise. Alright,
26.
also, sorry. It did. Alright, what is the compromise that would establish how slavery would be counted in the South? Like, the slaves, would they count for representation, for taxation and representation? What was that compromise?
3-5 compromise.
Good job.
Wait, did you say we can't ask questions about the quiz?
Yes, you can't ask questions about the quiz because of you, because
What
I'm
does that
recording
mean?
now.
So,
Ask me later if there's a question about the quiz.
the 3/5 compromise and the
Slave trade.
It's not the same thing?
No, commerce and slave trade. Commerce and slave trade said that, okay, we're gonna reevaluate whether or not we can have a slave trade in 1808,
He's got
and
the
we
answer
can't
already for the
have,
next one.
wait, and we can't have export tariff. You can't tax the South for selling cotton, basically. Okay,
18.
alright, what, so if you supported the Constitution, what was the name for your people?
Federal.
Good job, and anti-Dutch people that were against it.
17.
Let's see.
1738. Hey.
Alright, what was the first state? What's the
Me?
first state? Yeah.
Delaware.
What was that?
Wait, Delaware. Wait,
Yeah, I
what?
thought you said
said
nowhere.
nowhere.
I was like, there's no state called nowhere.
29.
You know, there's a street that's called this way? It's called this
Did you
way.
say 29?
29.
Alright, let's see.
Nice.
What year was the Bill of Rights added?
It's 17, right? 1780.
Before the-
7?
I was about to say.
1787.
Final answer?
Yeah, I guess.
Nope.
1785.
Nope.
Did
Is
we
it
talk
in
about
the
this?
No.
I
It's in
forgot.
the 90s.
Yeah.
1991.
We don't.
Huh?
Just ask.
Get right.
I thought we
30.
were in the 80s.
It's 30.
I thought we were 1800s.
It's 30. It's very much 30.
Alright, what is the branch of the federal government that is supposed to make laws?
Nuts.
No, wait, you took it, so it's your turn.
It's supposed to make the laws?
Nerd.
Yeah, well, sometimes a different group ends up trying to like make laws, but what's the group that's supposed to make our laws? Which branch of government?
It's not.
I'm just gonna say the wrong one. The judiciary one.
Which one?
The judiciary one.
Nope.
Legislative.
Legislative or Congress.
I didn't know that.
Okay, got him. Alright, what is the branch supposed to carry out the laws? Ethan's turn.
What?
What is the branch supposed to carry out the laws or execute
Let's
the laws?
start with.
E.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Executive.
Alright, and then what do we call that in the United States?
Executive branch.
Okay, now, which person
The
is it?
president.
There you
I have a
go.
question.
Yes.
So.
Nope, that's wrong.
This is for everyone. So we're not gonna get to the 1800s until what?
1800.
Because everyone's like, is it,
In about
is it
45 years.
18? Like, we're still in the 17s.
Yep, we gotta talk about the culture of the times for the 1700s, and then I think we eventually.
It is
go-
US
I think
history
it's
after
I think it's after your quarter exams or we finally swap over.
Okay, so stop asking for the 18s.
Alright,
Around 40
Ethan, pick your number.
45, 22.
11.
What's wrong?
Imagine.
Alright,
How did you know?
alright, so if Congress makes a bad law, who can basically cancel it out? What's a way you can cancel it out?
Well, I know.
The president.
You know?
Can cancel it out?
How
Or,
would, what does he do? What do we call
it's
that?
called a,
Starts with a V.
That's not a V.
It's
Yes, it
It's
is.
He doesn't know much about
Okay, I'll let you have it.
Can I say it?
Can I do-
veto.
wait,
It's veto.
There you go. Veto,
I said it
and
already.
then what's the other way? You cancel out.
The judiciary.
Alright, the Supreme Court, they say.
Judicial.
Nope. Huh?
Okay, what do they call it then if they say no, it's a bad law? It's what?
Bad.
It's expired.
Okay, so it's not part of the Constitution, so what term do we use for that?
Unconstitutional.
Good job.
What?
Alright, what if they decide, okay, oh, pick your number.
12.
Okay, that's my
Why are you
number.
picking near me?
Alright, so what if the president is overstepping his boundary and he's vetoing everything? How do you
Impeach.
Okay, eventually,
Impeachation.
but if they want to make the law anyway, what do they have to do?
Guillotine.
Who's gonna do that?
Guillotine.
Alright, so 2/3 majority vote, what can they also do if the president is given too much power?
Impeach.
Alright, and then what can the judicial branch do if they decide he's having too much power? What do they do?
Impeach.
Okay, they say it's unconstitutional,
Unconstitutional,
then they have to
then
ask the
impeach.
Senate to impeach him. Okay. Okay, not yet, not yet.
So then why did
No.
13.
impeach Trump?
Guillotine.
What?
What did Trump do that was unconstitutional?
Lots of people were just angry at Trump for a very long time.
That's why
part of
they
the
didn't
reason,
Because of his
part of the
toupee.
reason why was just because they didn't have anything to stick going through the whole process of being on trial. That's part of the reason why it is so hard to impeach a president, so that way you don't just have people just be angry and just start impeaching everybody. Alright, let's see, let's get the judicial branch right now.
That one needs to
Alright,
go.
who was the leader of the Baptists in Massachusetts? And you need to give
Bacchus.
you give correct pronunciation.
Bacchus.
That's still not correct.
Bacchus.
There you go. What's his first name?
Edmund. What's Star Wars?
Isaac.
Thank you.
Okay, say it with correct
Isaac.
pronunciation.
Isaac.
Isaac. There you go. How do you say it, Brecken? Because she can hear you better than I can.
Isaac Bacchus.
There you go. She can hear first.
Hurts my throat.
7. No, 19.
Alright, who was the leader of the, I don't know if he was, no, he was Baptist. So who was the leader of the Baptists in Virginia?
So.
L.
I got two.
Leland.
Leyland.
Skip, we'll come back to you. Alright,
Leland.
what's his first name?
John.
Good job, John Leland.
You're not for it.
Leland, how it looks.
34.
Get your home.
Alright, back to Brecken, let's skip by accident. Alright, who wrote Democracy in America?
Let's start with
His last name begins with A, technically, begins with D-E, and the last name begins with a T.
Wait, what?
Who wrote Democracy in America?
Tyndale.
No.
Tyndale. Tyndale. Is it
Alright.
like chocolate one?
I had to say something, okay? 'Cause I don't-
Chocolate chip. I know
Who wrote Democracy in America? Frenchman.
this. Frederick Smith?
No, Frenchman.
Frenchman. What's his first name start with?
A.
The last name was B.
Yeah.
It gets a D.
It's something.
Ooh, I know this.
Something.
Something to something.
Mm-hmm.
Albert.
Never mind.
Einstein.
Okay.
Alexis.
Colonel. Oh, I know
Huh?
Gotta give
To
him.
Tocqueville.
Good job. Alexis de Tocqueville.
Talk.
Get it right. I said it right.
It's the boy Tocqueville.
Get it right.
The Tocqueville.
16.
What is that?
Alright, so I believe it's Ethan's turn for real now because I accidentally skipped Brecken, so I had to go back for Brecken, and now it's Ethan.
Wow, Brecken.
I'm sorry.
Alright, so let's see. What is the supreme law of the land of the United States?
The Bible.
You're the reason.
The Constitution.
Okay, yes, you're alright that the Bible is the underlying thing, but if you're talking about a document for laws, yes, it is the Constitution.
It is number 30. I'm at 24.
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's not.
You didn't click it. Yes, you did.
You go through this whole thing.
I win.
And it's nowhere.
No, I checked, I actually made sure this time.
Oh, what is
Alright, what is
Where is
the, I'm not telling you. Where is the year for the Constitutional Convention?
17.
Where's he here?
Um,
Did you just say where
Yeah,
is
I said
he?
where's that year, not
Is
hit
it
the
the
line.
80s or
Ryan
90s?
Sherman. It's
Like,
not.
is it the 80s or 90s? 17?
This one's in the 80s.
88?
What'd you say?
88?
Where you at?
What was the first part?
1788?
1788, final answer?
Yeah.
No.
1787.
Yep.
27.
Will
we ever be able to go back?
I said it right before she said
Probably not.
Aw.
What?
Who led the rebellion during the critical period?
Dan Shades.
Is that your final answer?
Daniel.
Daniel of what?
Daniel Shades.
Daniel Shades.
Danielle Shades.
If we go back in time, it'd be so cool.
Number 7.
7?
It's not there. There is no 7.
Now there's no 7. Alright, we're gonna have to move on from this because we're gonna run out of time. Alright,
13.
everyone, we'll go
We all
twice
get-
through everyone, so you're gonna go, and then we'll go backwards. So,
Alright.
choose.
9.
Final
No.
answer.
No.
No, 15.
Final answer.
No.
Alright, Brecken, choose one.
23.
No!
Final
Stop.
answer.
Yeah.
Alright, Genesis.
9.
Alright.
No,
final
no.
answer.
Yes.
Okay, now
I was
we're
about to
going
say-
backwards. Okay.
No, what?
He said
No,
no.
go back to Ethan. Go back to Ethan.
No, we guys, no, for it's fair, so we're gonna go back that way. So Ethan's gonna be last. Okay.
28.
Final answer? Is your final question? Is your final
It's
choice?
28. It's 28.
Alright, Brecken.
Ah.
32.
It's not 30.
Alright, final answer?
It's not.
Yeah.
Ethan. It's up to you. It's all it.
Wait, this is like the
This
last
is it. This is
ever?
it. Like, for
Ever?
She
today,
ain't
I'm
gonna
gonna
let
look
us
it out. I'm
do it
not
again
showing
after
you which
this.
one I
You gotta get
chose.
it right.
Okay.
Cause I know which one I chose.
Which
I'm
one
not
do I
showing you.
think?
10.
Okay, 14 or 10.
10.
Okay, 36.
What?
36, final answer.
No.
Okay, hurry.
Oh.
We gotta go.
10.
3. I believe it's 3.
3. Final answer. You sure?
10, 10, 10, 10.
Oh my goodness, Ethan. 10. Final answer.
3.
3. Final answer.
Yes.
You sure? 100%.
I'm not sure at all.
Can't change anymore.
Press it.
Oh! What? Oh!
I was getting stressed out, but I remember which one it was.
Oh!
Good try. Okay.
told you.
Why did I
10.
do my strat like I always do? Just going up the side, going 1, 2, 3.
I told you to pick 10.
Alright,
How
page
did you do
105.
that?
We finished off the first chapter.
It was
of
hot.
this
It was
section.
hot.
So remember, as a general rule, you have 3 chapters between every 10. So we did the first chapter, we're in our second chapter now. I'm a little bit behind y'all, but it's okay. What's due next month? What's due this coming Monday though?
Girls paper. I don't want to do
The rough draft. I need to see positive effort. If you show me one sentence, is that positive effort?
No.
No, that's not positive effort. So you should show me at
5
least
sentences.
something.
What if I showed you
should-
300 words at first?
You show me 300 words?
Because I'm moving this
Guillotine.
weekend.
I'm gonna write 3 sentences.
I'm moving
No,
it.
that's not
250 words.
And then I can add
3
more to it.
sentences
Because
Okay, I want to see about 300 to 400 words minimum. And I should see 6 paragraphs.
So it's
Because
8
remember,
paragraphs.
Okay,
I should see
because
a minimum of 6 on the rough
I'm
draft.
moving this weekend, and we're doing a lot of it this weekend.
Guess you should
I don't get
write.
home until
I
like
guess you
8
should-
o'clock.
I guess you should write tonight, since because stuff is either happening or not happening. It sounds like you should probably start working on it tonight, so you'll have extra
Do it
time.
all Sunday night.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sunday
Yeah.
night.
Monday morning.
I see a minimum around 6 paragraphs, so don't show up with like one poorly written, half thought
I'm
out
just
idea.
gonna give me 3 monsters, 2 Red Bulls, and do it on Sunday night.
For real.
Alright, page 105, so that's where we left off. We're talking about Federalist era. So if this is the Federalist era, what are these people for? Just
The Constitution.
the Constitution. Now, we're going to have the start of political parties. Now, it's not Democrats and Republicans like it is today, like the Democrat Party and the Republican Party today.
I made
You
it.
made it, but make sure you get permission before you
Can I throw some papers away?
Nope. Alright, so just make sure that you know that, okay, you do have the start of the parties in this era for it. I want to read the quote by George Washington at the top of the page. Chris is not here. So
I'll read it.
somebody
What
else.
page?
Oh,
Page 105. Who wants to read the
I'll read
quote?
it.
Alright, Ethan.
This government, the offspring of our own choice, adopted upon thorough investigation and mature deliberation, completely free in its principles and containing within itself a provision for its own amendment, as it just claims to be confident in its support.
Good job. So what he's talking about in that section is he said, okay, we have our Constitution. We wrote the Constitution. We voted for it. So everyone living in America at this time, period, if you were a freeman, you voted for it or elected someone because you are a republic and they voted for it. So he's saying that we have our document that has, for the most part, everyone's support. Alright, so you remember several things kind of kick-starting it. George Washington was the first president, so he went to our temporary capital. Our temporary capital was where this, I think we were talking about this.
New York City.
Yep, so that was a temporary capital. Now, our capital today is Washington DC, but Washington DC is not built yet. So that's why we have a temporary capital of New York
Does it-
City.
it doesn't
Wait,
exist.
raise your hand. What?
Doesn't exist.
No, they built it on purpose to be the nation's capital. Kind of how, like, if anyone remembers from geography, why is Vatican City where the Pope lives and where the Pope works, why is he considered, why is he considered its own country as opposed to part of Italy? Because it's in Italy. You sure you don't want to answer Brecken?
I'm in it. I barely remember.
You're
Ah.
currently in
I
geography.
haven't
I know.
taken it yet.
Because they don't want to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Ethan.
Has its own government.
Okay, but why is it its own country?
Because it has no capital. Its
Why?
capital.
I mean, it's one city. It's literally Vatican City. It's literally where the Pope lives.
Why is it considered a country?
Yeah, why is it considered its own
Because the
country?
Pope wants to be separate.
Okay, well, why did, like, France not want the Pope to live in Italy proper?
Because they don't want everybody
Wait,
to.
raise your
Because
hand, raise
So
your
so
hand.
so it's not in just
Raise your
one
hand.
spot.
Genesis, raise your hand first.
So it'll kill him.
Okay, partly
No,
because
just let me
that.
say.
Okay,
Okay, so that everybody isn't fighting over who is like who wants it more. You know, like so he's like spread out, so he's in his own spot, so they know he's for everyone.
so trying to get rid of favoritism?
Yeah.
That's the idea, and so that's it. So that's the same idea. So it's not like Washington D.C. isn't part of any one state, so that way it's its own little separate district where it's actually not part of any one state technically. Okay,
Was the White House invented?
was it invented?
Was it a,
More like
I mean,
big-
was it a thing?
Was it built? No, they built it in the White House specifically for the president.
Question.
So George Washington lived in the White House
He did not live in the White House, no.
at all?
No.
So it was John Adams.
I believe it
Or
was,
Thomas Jefferson.
I think it's John Quincy Adams is whenever the White House is
Is that
built
his son?
slash
or his
burned
brother?
slash built.
1812 is when it's burned.
Yeah, that's whenever it's burnt. So I know that he's the last one to live in the first version of it, and then it gets rebuilt later on. But no, because the White House is in Washington D.C., it's not built yet. I don't remember what he lived in or New York City though.
That's
Okay.
6 presidents in.
So it's
Takes a
named
while to build a house.
it's
Mansion.
named it's named after George Washington, Washington D.C.
You know, I never thought about that, but I guess
Is
it probably is.
Washington?
It probably is.
Washington
Why is
State.
Washington DC not in Washington?
Washington's way over the
I
part of the
don't know,
country.
why is it?
That state's not around yet.
What?
It's not around yet in this period here. Okay, we gotta go. Send it
Most
to
of the
New York
country's
City is the
not around.
temporary capital city.
Logic.
Alright, so your book points out George Washington, he took the oath by swearing in on the Bible. He added the phrase, "So help me God," to the end of the oath, and every president since then has added it as a tradition. Because again, since George Washington did it, we are all going to copy it. So whenever he took the oath of office with his hand on the Bible, which every president has done since then, and every president has added the word "So help me God" at the end of it. Even though they may or may not be Christians, they still added it just because it's what George Washington did, and tradition. And since George Washington did it, we will also do it.
Can I read it?
You may read it.
I'm the president if I read the top.
They're not.
Read aloud so Jamie and Quentin and possibly Chris can hear you.
My fervent supplications to that almighty being who rules over the universe, who presides in the councils of nations, and whose aids can supply every human defect. No people can be bound to acknowledge and adore the invisible hand which conducts the affair of men, more than those of the United States. Every step by which they have advanced to the character of an independent nation seems to have been distinguished by some token of permanent agency. So help me God.
Okay, that's not the inaugural address. So this one, it was the inaugural address. So he added that, "So help me God," at the end of his oath of office. So slightly different speeches, but yes, so that was his first inaugural address, or address to Congress in particular. Alright, early acts of Congress. So they had to make their basically different departments or people in charge of different sections of it. So they had to make executive departments to help the president. So they created the Department of Foreign Affairs. It got changed to Department of State later on, Department of the Treasury, the War Department. They changed it to Department of Defense in the 20th century. Anyone think they know why they changed it from War Department to Department of Defense? Why did they change the name? The purpose is the exact same.
Because we weren't doing war.
Okay, well, 20th century is the 1900s, so we were involved in war and conflict. But why did we change the name?
Because defense is more like it.
Yeah, it would,
Sounds
Department,
better.
yeah, Department of War sounds, or the War Department sounds a little aggressive. So they said, Department of Defense sounds a little nicer, we're gonna change it. So that's probably the reason why they changed it later on. So the Attorney General, or the person that's kind of like the lawyer for the federal government. Postmaster General, so again, person in charge of the post office and post roads. This was the way of having mail and information transferred. That's why they had to have a specific department created for him. Yes.
Wait, 21st century is just 2000, right?
Yes. So yeah, it's a little weird how they do that. Alright, Thomas, okay, you wanna know on page 106, who is the first what? And these are the first of different categories. You wanna know, like for example, George Washington is the first president. Thomas Jefferson is the first Secretary of State. Alexander Hamilton is the first Secretary of Treasury. Henry Knox is the first Secretary of War. Edmund Randolph is the first Attorney General. Samuel Osgood is the first Postmaster General, and then we're going to talk about John Jay a little bit later on. But you want to note those 6 people. George Washington, he started asking them to write in, basically a report once a week saying what's your opinion on these different aspects or different ideas or different things that are happening with the government, with the administration. Instead of just having it and just written to them, and eventually he started meeting with them, so it became known as the cabinet meetings. So that's the reason why you have the president and his cabinet. It was a tradition that George Washington kind of started, just meeting with them to see what are some things that's happening as a nation, how do we all help benefit the nation all together. So cabinet meetings become an established tradition underneath George Washington. Alright, the Congress also passed the Judiciary Act of 1789. This set up the court system, so don't make a note of that act, you have to memorize it with the year. So sorry, kind of like the land ordinances of 1785, you gotta know the year of it. So Judiciary Act of 1789. This created a Chief Justice and 5 Associate Justices. We have more than that today, but at this time period, it's 1 Chief Justice and 5 Associate Justices. The first Chief Justice, or the head judge, we'll leave it that way, is John Jay. So make a note of him. John Jay is the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Alright, anyone have any questions about that? Alright, so getting into Alexander Hamilton in particular, because he was our first Secretary of the Treasury. His job is to help us get on a good financial kind of basis to how do we establish an economy for our country and then help us move forward. We had just gone to war, so what do we probably have once you go to war in regards to money?
Nothing.
Yes, because you typically owe lots of money. We have a very large debt. So Alexander Hamilton says, okay, we gotta pay back our debt. So we gotta figure out how much we go first. Alright, there are 3 of you today. Sorry, Chris. So 3 of you today. So we're gonna let each of you read a piece of this first part of paying back the debt. Alright, you read that first one.
Payment of the foreign debt. The nation had incurred a debt of nearly $12 million to foreign creditors. Hamilton proposed that this debt be paid immediately to restore America's credit abroad.
Yeah, so we owe $12 million just to other nations like France. So we need to hurry up and pay them back as quickly as possible. Alright, Jensen, you want to drink the second one?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, quick.
How much do we owe now?
Today, like how much do we owe today? It
A
goes
trillion.
up constantly. It's in the trillions. It's sad and it's depressing.
We're not
Talk about the
paying
reason why. No, because the government is spending more
like
than it's
28
getting money.
billion.
It's way up
Trillion.
there. It's in the trillions.
So what
And it's
happens?
there's an actual website you can go to where they keep an accurate record, and you just sit there and you can watch it go up by like the minutes. It's so depressing.
So it just sits there, like doesn't get paid or anything?
Yeah, well, because the government's supposed to pay it back, but they're not. They're just spending more than they're actually getting. And mainly because of welfare, but we'll talk more about the reasons
But
why for
if
it. But
they-
that's part of the reason why it's coming from. Okay.
If say China hasn't asked for the debt yet because
Our
if they
economy
were
would
to
collapse.
ask-
If they were to ask for it, be like, well, there goes that. Economy's
and then
collapsed,
the
we
roll
can't pay back.
calls and
Yeah,
because
that's why
we're
China
more
doesn't
efficient.
ask for us to pay back the debt, because they know once we collapse, it'll affect so many other nations that'll probably cause like a global recession. So China is just like, you know what, we're just not gonna ask for money back. We're just gonna wait and hope somehow.
Wait for what? To get
Hopefully
hired?
they'll come back
To
later
juice
on.
them.
Okay, quick question.
So every country has a debt, right?
I believe every country does, depending on the
China.
time period. I believe
Chad?
every country has a debt. Okay.
So if every country has a debt and someone tries to use it against someone else, like
someone's gonna use it.
yeah, and somebody else will like try to
Chain
use it.
reaction.
Wouldn't it like just start something bad so people like just keep it
World
to
War III.
themselves and like don't really mess
Well,
with
keep
it?
in mind, if I owe you $10 and I just never give you back the $10, you still think that, okay, I should still have that $10 and they haven't paid me back. So long term, it's not a good idea to have everyone constantly on debt. We're gonna talk about this with the Great Depression because people did that, and that's why once it started getting rocky and it started to fall, the whole thing fell out. Was because there was
Yeah.
nobody that had money basically at that point. All right, well let's get into it. What's the part 2? Do this refresher.
Payment of the domestic debt. The government also owed well over 40 million to American investors. Private citizens had loaned money to the government during sorry, my throat tired. The war by purchasing bonds. Promises for payment with interest. In addition, many American soldiers had accepted pay certificates, promises for payment at a later date, for their service in the war. Hamilton proposed that the bonds and certificates be redeemed by the government at full face value.
Good job. So Hamilton and the federal government, they had basically borrowed money from the citizens. We owed our own people $40 million. And the American people said, I want my money. I need to live. I need to go buy food. Federal government, pay me back. Alright, number 3, Brecken.
Assumption of state debt. The individual states had incurred debts totaling over 21 million during the war. Hamilton proposed that the national government assume or take over these debts.
Alright, so what's he saying with that one? Saying, okay, we're not going to worry about Virginia paying back their debt, Maine paying back their debt, Georgia be worried about paying back their debt. We're just going to say, okay, all the debt, since you are now part of the Union or part of the United States, we're going to just take over it, and we're just going to take it as part of the federal debt. Now, we owed a lot of money. If you add all that up, we get to about $73 million, all said in total, all done. Which today, standards doesn't seem like a lot. That was a lot back then. That's still a lot today. So, funding the debt. So there was, so Hamilton said, okay, long term, we're going to have to pay this back. But how do we pay this back right now? So what he said was that people, they could exchange their old bond certificates for new interest-bearing bonds, and the government will pay it back with interest in the next 15 to 20 years. This part of Hamilton's program is called funding the debt, because the government has to make money in some way. He says, okay, exchange your old bonds and get these new ones. The government will pay you back more with interest later on. Now, Congress eventually adopted Hamilton's entire program and made it all law. But several people were unhappy because some people and some soldiers, they said, okay, we don't think the government will ever pay back these bonds, so I'm going to go ahead and sell it to somebody else. Now, I might have a bond for $20, but I'm going to go ahead and sell it because I don't know if the government can pay it back. So I'm going to sell it to this other person for $5. They will give me $5 for my bond certificate. Now, the person said, okay, I'm going to pay $5 for it, but I'm going to hope that the government will pay it back eventually at the $20 value. Well, Hamilton said, okay, since the federal government promised that we would pay $20 back, in this example, then yeah, we should pay back the $20. Some people said, nuh-uh, I only sold it for $5, so they should only get $5 back from the federal government. Hamilton said, you made the choice to sell it. It's your fault. We promised we would pay back $20. We're going to pay back $20. They took the risk. You sold it. You didn't have to. So, sorry, you made a bad choice. But he said, this was the government had promised that, we need to follow through. So, that's why you're some people, they fussed about this originally. You see this idea kind of crops again later on. With assuming state debts, a lot of the southern states had already paid off their debts. So they didn't like the idea of helping off the northern states. You're going to see a lot of north versus south, even starting in this particular time period. And the south was basically saying, no, we don't want to get involved in paying back like New York's debt. We've already paid it back. We don't want to deal with it. Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton actually worked out a kind of deal saying, okay, if you approve this part of it, we will give you something else in return. The South wanted the federal capital to be closer to the southern states. They didn't like it being around New York City because that's farther north. So they said, okay, we want it to be southern South. Now, compared to our entire country today, Virginia and Maryland does not seem like the South, but that was the South for back then. So Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton, they agreed, and they swung a deal saying, okay, if you vote to approve with the federal government assuming state debts, we will get it changed so that way the new state capital is built farther down in the southern area. And so, yeah, Congress agrees. They said, okay, if we approve this part, then we'll move closer around Philadelphia, and then it'll go farther south into the area of Washington D.C. But the South just really wanted the capital closer to their territory as opposed to the North. Alright, so anyone have any questions about that? Alright, created a national bank. Hamilton said, okay, I have to have a bank so that way I can balance currency, and so that way it can help control the currency with having a good source of currency. At the time period, a lot of the states have their own currency, and Hamilton said long term that's not good. So he convinced Congress to pass the bill. It was for the Bank of the United States. It would be chartered for 20 years and have a capital stock of 10 million. The government would only own 1/5 of the stock, and the rest of it would be private investment. You're gonna learn about this with economics. But it's better for private investors to be involved because private investors historically run an institution better than the government does. So that's what he said, okay, the government can only run 1/5 of it, the rest of it, other people manage. The bank could also issue banknotes. Now, banknotes in this time period is like paper money, but it could be exchanged at a bank on demand for gold or silver. You can't do this today. You can't go up to a bank and say, hey, here's a $10 bill, I want $10 worth of gold and silver. That's not how our economy works today. But for back in the day, that's how it worked. Their actual coins back then were in a lot of cases based on gold and silver, and the banknotes were based on the idea that you could actually exchange it for gold and silver as well. Most people like this idea, except for Thomas Jefferson. We're going to see a lot of times Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton do not like each other because Thomas Jefferson is more for state rights, while Alexander Hamilton is more for big government and federal government, more of the federal government versus states' rights. So since they have two different ideas about how government should run, they automatically don't like each other. So, I'm not going to finish this. Alright, we'll go ahead and we'll stop there. You don't have any homework because it's Wednesday, so make sure you are studying. I will catch up eventually. Alright, so thinking back over it, what was one part of Hamilton's financial program?
Paying off debt.
Which part?